Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
We'll start with the New Orleans Saints, and we'll start with what I kind of alluded to there, what I think is going to kind of be the storyline that carries you through the summer that isn't on field for the New Orleans Saints, and that's Alvin Kamara's contract. We mentioned this briefly yesterday, talked about it a little bit with John Hendricks when he was on the show with us, but we didn't go too in-depth. I want to go a little bit more in-depth now. So, what we know, obviously, Alvin Kamara reports to mandatory minicamp, participates in the first 2 days, goes through walkthrough on Thursday, and then deuces, pieces out. And it just trickles out. It's a contract dispute. And when you look deeper, you look at both the Saints and Kamara kind of drawing a line in the sand so far throughout these discussions. And it's fair to ask because both the team and Kamara have kind of drawn that line in the sand, made a statement towards the other. It's completely fair to ask if this is the beginning of the end for Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. He's under contract through 2024, but you have that 2025 year where he's set to make $22.4 million. None of that is guaranteed. So basically, 2024 is the final year of Alvin Kamara's contract. And looking deeper at it, the Saints had plenty of time throughout the offseason to restructure that deal if they so choose. Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network reported that the Saints have been trying to restructure that deal with Alvin Kamara for the last few months, but there's been no progress there. What the Saints haven't been willing to do, at least as it seems on the surface right now, is sign Alvin Kamara to a long-term extension. And there's reasons for that we will get into. And quite honestly, they're understandable reasons. If you're in the New Orleans Saints' shoes, if you're in Alvin Kamara's shoes, you can also understand why he would clearly want a long-term extension. For one, Alvin Kamara has made it clear he wants to remain in New Orleans for his entire career. It's a funny thing with Kamara. He's been, just compared to Christian McCaffrey throughout their entire careers. They were in the same draft class. For a long time, their production ran parallel, but the thing that AK always kind of had over McCaffrey was he did it in fewer touches. Like McCaffrey was just an absolute bell cow when he was getting all that production. Kamara wasn't. He had Mark Ingram to take some of the slack. He had it was a two-back system for the majority of the time there in New Orleans with Kamara. McCaffrey's the highest paid running back. Kamara's number 2. They ran in parallel. And when you look at those two side by side, and this is not the only reason, it's just the comp that you can't avoid. While McCaffrey's continued that steady incline, Kamara's production has dipped. And that's why if you're the Saints, you look at this and say, okay, not wanting to commit long term. Alvin Kamara in the last 3 years has averaged less than 4 yards per rush in all 3 years. He averaged just 5.4 yards per reception last season, which was the biggest part of his game. Now, granted, you have the change in offense, and we're going to get to that. But the production has just fallen off, and then there's the age factor. Kamara's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 soon. Running back is a position that is obviously being devalued more and more in the National Football League. No matter, how productive you maybe were in the past, as the slightest hint of that production ceasing, your value plummets. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that seems like how it's been going in the NFL for a while now when it comes to running back. So when you're the Saints and you're looking at the decline in production, age, all of that, having an off-ramp from the deal after this season, you can look at it and say, is it the beginning of the end? Then there's Kamara's point of view. And that has to go into the new offense in New Orleans with Clint Kubiak, because by all accounts, Alvin Kamara is the perfect fit for this offense. You can get back to the McCaffrey comparison there, right? You can't avoid it. Those two guys have run parallel forever. You had multiple people come on this show this week talking about what they've seen from Kamara in the new offense, the screen pass, a wheel route, things you hadn't seen forever. Remember early in the year, Kamara had like 14 targets or 14 receptions in 2023 in one game, but the production just wasn't there. They were force-feeding him the ball. They just knew, well, you've got this asset, you got to get him the football, but there was actually no plan. There's a plan for Alvin Kamara in this offense. Could his production return in this offense? Absolutely, but that's an if. And with the way the Saints have handled this, it seems like they are very much in wait-and-see mode with Alvin Kamara. Okay, can you do it? And the other half of that is, even if the Saints are productive offensively and you do see an uptick, yet maybe the overall record doesn't improve, you miss the playoffs again, Dennis Allen's probably fired, and you're probably looking at a staff overhaul. So even if it's just 1 year that, yes, the production returned, it was in that offense, if you overhaul the staff because the overall team success wasn't there, you're kind of back to square one, aren't you? You're in that same position where, the production was there, but would it be there in another new system? There's plenty of reasons to look and see why the Saints should kind of be in that, hey, let's take a step back. Let's see how this actually goes and works. So what happens? What is the most likely outcome with the Saints and Alvin Kamara? And is it something that can be reached before the start of the season? The only way I think something gets done from the Saints standpoint is if they can agree on some type of restructure, like they did with Taysom Hill. That's a way you can commit yourself to the player for the future without long-term extension. If the Saints and Kamara can come to an agreement on a restructure, which, as we mentioned earlier in this segment, they've been trying to work on, they just don't have the progress. If they can somehow get the progress, you get him some guaranteed money for 2025. You'll throw another void year probably on the back of it, which actually has kind of gotten you into this spot a little bit as well. But you'll do that, and he'll have some security going through. He'll be able to actually play out the full 5 years of the deal, all of that. I think that is a possibility for something to happen either before training camp or definitely before the season. I don't think there's any path for a long-term extension until the Saints would see how Alvin Kamara actually fits in this offense and how this offense impacts winning in the future of the organization. The off-ramp after this season's just too good. I mean, there's no guaranteed money. The dead cap hit drops to $10.1 million. And if you release him in the offseason, you could save up to $18.9 million against the cap. You don't give something like that up when there's that big of an unknown for you with someone whose production has dropped off and is getting older. Is it the beginning of the end? It certainly could be. I think what the Saints have made clear is it's up to Alvin Kamara to prove that it's not. And he'll get his chance. If they get something done, restructure, long-term extension. He's going to have to go out there and prove that he's still got it. And he's also going to have to kind of hitch his wagon to this offense, improving the Saints to where they make the postseason in order to keep this thing together into the future. We'll see. It's going to be a very interesting offseason now that they're done with mandatory minicamp and whatnot until training camp, when you could just kind of focus in on something like Alvin Kamara's contract. And I'm sure this is not the last that we'll talk about it here on these airwaves.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.